All right. Welcome to Prayer and Practice. I'm your host, Ian, and I'm going to be reading from the book of Enoch today. I should say tonight. The first book of Enoch, if you're not familiar with it, it is an ancient book that was written around 400 BC. It was found among the Dead Sea Scrolls, and our modern surviving versions of it are all in Ethiopic, but it was originally written in Hebrew. I will be reading chapters 14 through 21. This is still part of what's known as the Book of the Watchers. There are 5 books that make up First Enoch, and the Book of the Watchers is the first book in the first book of Enoch. So I will be reading chapters 14 through 21 and cross-referencing it with the rest of the Bible and just kind of discussing what's going on in this prophecy. So if you have a copy of the Book of Enoch, I invite you to read along because I'm not able to share my screen right now. I am using what's known as the LSV, the literal standard version of the Book of Enoch. So that means it's a word-for-word translation of the original manuscripts. So let's get reading. All right. So this is chapter 14. And in case you're wondering, the previous chapters 1 through 7 and 7 through 14 are already uploaded on my channel. So if you haven't read up to chapter 14 yet, you can go watch those videos. And so I already recorded that. All right, let's go. The scroll of the words of righteousness and of the reprimand of the perpetual watchers in accordance with the command of the Holy Great One. In that vision, I saw in my sleep what I will now say with a tongue of flesh and with the breath of my mouth, which is the Great One has given to men to converse with and understand with the heart, as he has created and given to man the power of understanding the word of wisdom. So he has also created me and given me the power of reprimanding the watchers, the children of heaven. I wrote out your petition, and in my vision it appeared like this: that your petition will not be granted to you throughout all the days of the age, and the judgment has been finally passed on you. Yes, your petition will not be granted to you, and from now on you will not ascend into heaven for all ages, and in bonds of the earth the decree has gone out to bind you for all the days of the world. And you will have seen the destruction of your beloved sons before, and you will have no pleasure in them, but they will fall before you by the sword, and your petition on their behalf will not be granted, nor yet on your own, even though you weep and pray and speak all the words contained in the writing which I have written. And you, in the vision, was shown to me like this: Behold, in the vision clouds invited me, and a mist summoned me, and the course of the stars and lightnings sped towards me, and the words in the vision caused me to fly and lifted me upward and bore me into heaven. And I went in until I drew near to a wall which is built out of crystals and surrounded by tongues of fire. And it began to frighten me, and I went into the tongues of fire and drew near to a large house which was built of crystal, and the walls of the house were like a tessellated floor made of crystals, and its groundwork was of crystals. Its ceiling and the path of the stars and the lightnings, and between them were fiery cherubim, and their heaven was as clear as water. A flaming fire surrounded the walls, and its portals blazed with fire. And I entered into its port, and I entered into the house, and it was hot as fire and cold as ice, and there were no delights of life therein. Fear covered me, and trembling took hold of me. And as I quaked and trembled, I fell on my face, and I beheld a vision. And behold, there was a second house, greater than the former, and the entire portal stood open before me, and it was built of flames of fire, and in every respect it so excelled in splendor and magnificence, and and the extent that I cannot describe to you its splendor and its extent, and its floor was of fire, and above its extent and its floor, was lightning in the path of the stars, and its ceiling also like flaming fire. And I looked and saw a lofty throne therein. Its appearance was as crystal, and the wheels thereof as the shining sun. And there was the vision of cherubim, and from underneath the throne came streams of flaming fire, so that I could not look thereon. And the great glory sat thereon, and his raiment shone more brightly than the sun, and was whiter than any snow. None of the messengers could enter and behold his face by reason of the magnificence and glory. And so flesh could not behold him. The flaming fire was around him, and a great fire stood before him, and none around could draw near him. Myriads of myriads stood before him, yet he needed no counselor. And the most holy ones who were near to him did not leave by night, nor prostrate, oh, nor depart from him. And until then, I said I had been prostrate on my face. Trembling, the Lord called me with his own mouth and said to me, Come here, Enoch, and hear my words. And one of the holy ones came to me and waked me, and he made me rise up and approach the door. And I bowed my face downwards. All right, so that was chapter 14. Um, just a few notes here, some really interesting imagery. Enoch is having a vision of heaven, and as he's having this vision of heaven, he sees two houses. The first house is made of crystal, and then the second house is made of crystal and fire. And this is really interesting because when we read the book of Revelation, we see the New Jerusalem is made of all sorts of precious stones. And so the imagery of a house made of crystal is very similar to the imagery of the New Jerusalem that is made of precious stones. So it's very interesting imagery that's crossing over there. And then also we have the flaming tongues of fire. And so we see these tongues of fire that are all over this heavenly house. And the tongues of fire are really interesting in the book of Enoch because in the book of Acts, we see that when the Holy Spirit descends upon the disciples, they are there are tongues of fire above their head when they speak in tongues. And then also, it's very interesting to note that it describes God sitting on his throne, and it says that his raiment is whiter than snow. And that's interesting because when Jesus is on the Mount of Transfiguration, it says that his robe becomes whiter than anyone could launder it. It like becomes as white can be. So very interesting imagery kind of crossing over there. So now I'm going to read chapter 15 of First Enoch. So this is chapter 15 of First Enoch. All right. And he answered and said to me, and I heard his voice, "Do not fear, Enoch, you righteous man, and scribe of righteousness. Approach here and hear my voice, and go and say to the watchers of the heavens, you have sent to intercede for them. You should intercede for men, and not men for you. And you," what does it say? Oh, yeah, you should intercede for men and not men for you. Why have you left the high, holy, and perpetual heaven, and lain with women, and defiled yourself with the daughters of men, and taken wives to yourselves, and done like the children of earth, and begotten giants as your sons? And though you were holy and spiritual, living the continuous life, you have defiled yourself with the blood of women, and have begotten children with the blood of flesh. And as the children of men have lusted after flesh and blood, as those who die and perish also do. There I have also given them wives, that they might impregnate them and beget children by them, and nothing might be wanting to them on earth. But you were formerly spiritual, living the continuous life, and immortal for all generations of the world. And therefore I have not appointed wives for you. For as for the spiritual ones of the heavens, their dwelling is in the heavens. And now the giants, who are produced from the spirits and flesh, will be called evil spirits on the earth, and their dwelling will be on the earth. Evil spirits have proceeded from their bodies because they are born from men, and their beginning and primal origin is from the holy watchers. They will be evil spirits on earth, and they will be called evil spirits. As for the spirits of heaven, their dwelling will be in heaven. For as for the spirits of earth, which were born on earth, their dwelling will be on the earth. And the spirits of the giants afflict, oppress, destroy, attack, do battle, and work destruction on the earth, and cause trouble. They take no food, but nevertheless hunger and thirst, and cause offenses. And these spirits will rise up against the children of men and against the women, because they have proceeded from them. Very interesting stuff. So we see in chapter 15 of Enoch here that it's talking about the punishment of these watchers and the giants. And the interesting thing is that it talks about how the sin of the watchers is that they came down and that they impregnated human women. And God says to them, He says, "Don't you know that you're immortal? And as immortal spirits, you don't marry, you don't impregnate, you don't get pregnant, right? But these angels couldn't help themselves. They came down and they impregnated these human women, and they created these giants." And um, there's a really interesting side note here in the New Testament when the Pharisees come up to Jesus and they ask him about divorce, and they ask him, "Is it lawful for a man to divorce his wife?" Jesus, or or what do they say? Oh, that's what they say. The Pharisees come up to Jesus and they bring him this hypothetical question about a woman who's been married 7 times, and each time her husband dies. And the Pharisees ask Jesus, they say, whose husband will she have in the afterlife? And Jesus says, haven't you read, that um, when you're in heaven, you will be like the angels, for angels neither marry nor are taken in marriage. And the only place where you could get the information that angels do not marry nor are they taken in marriage is found in chapter 15 of the book of Enoch. So it seems that he was familiar with this chapter. Very interesting stuff. But let's read on. This is chapter 16 in the book of Enoch. From the days of the slaughter and destruction and death of the giants, from the souls of whose flesh the spirits have gone out, will destroy without incurring judgment. They will therefore destroy until the day of the consummation, the great judgment in which the age will be consummated over the watchers and the godless. Yes, it will be wholly consummated. And now, as the watchers who have sent you to intercede for them who had previously been in heaven, say to them, you have been in heaven, but all the mysteries had not yet been revealed to you, and you knew worthless ones, and you have made these known to the women in the hardness of your hearts, and through these mysteries women and men work much evil on earth. Therefore say to them, you have no peace. All right. So these angels, they're given no peace. All right. Also, it's interesting to note that it says that the evil spirits that are going to be on the earth, the evil spirits are the spirits of the nephilim. So when these nephilim die, their evil spirits inhabit the earth. And in the New Testament, we see reference to what do they say in the New Testament? They call them unclean spirits. The unclean spirits are the spirits of the Nephilim in the New Testament. So, very interesting. All right, chapter 17. And they took and brought me to a place in which those who were there were like flaming fire, and they appeared as men when they wished. And they brought me to the place of darkness, and to a mountain, the point of whose summit reached to heaven. And I saw the places of the luminaries, and the treasuries of the stars, and of the thunder. And in the uttermost depths there was a fiery bow, an arrow, and their quiver, and a fiery sword, and all the lightnings. And they took me to the living waters, and to the fire of the west, which receives every setting of the sun. And I came to a river of fire, in which the fire flows like water and discharges itself into the great sea towards the west. I saw the great rivers, and came to the great river, and to the great darkness, and went to the place where no flesh walks. I saw the mountain of the darkness of winter, and the place from where all the waters of the deep flow. I saw the mouths of the rivers, and of the earth, and the mouth of the deep. All right, so it's hard to say where exactly Enoch is at this point. It sounds like it is. It could still be in heaven, but it's hard to say if he's in heaven or if he's on earth at this time. Wherever it is where there's a very tall mountain. It seems to be a place on earth and not in heaven. All right, so chapter 18. Oh, chapter 18. I saw the treasuries of all the winds. I saw how he had furnished the whole creation, and the firm foundations of the earth with them. And I saw the cornerstone of the earth. I saw the four winds, which bear the earth and the expanse of heaven, and I saw how the winds stretch out the vaults of the heavens, and have their stations between the heavens and earth. These are the pillars of the heavens. I saw the winds of heaven, which turn and bring the circumference of the sun and all the stars to their setting. I saw the winds on the earth carrying the clouds. I saw the paths of the messengers. I saw at the end of the earth the expanse of heavens above, the end of the earth, the expanse of the heavens above. And I proceeded, and I saw a place which burns day and night, where there are 7 mountains of magnificent stone, 3 towards the east and 3 towards the south. And as for those toward the east, one was of colored stone, and one of pearl, and one of jacinth, and those toward the south were of red stone, but the middle one reached to the heavens, like the throne of God, of alabaster, and the summit of the throne was of sapphire. And I saw a flaming fire, and beyond these mountains is a region at the end of the great earth. There the heavens were completed, and I saw a deep abyss with columns of heavenly fire, and among them I saw which were beyond measure, alike towards the height and towards the depth. And beyond that abyss I saw a place which had no expanse of the heavens above, and no firmly founded earth beneath it. There was no water on it, and no birds, but it was a waste and horrible place. I saw 7 stars there like great burning mountains, and to me, when I inquired regarding them, the messenger said, "This place is the end of the heavens and earth. This has been a prison for the stars and the host of heaven. And the stars which roll over the fire are there, they which have transgressed the command of the Lord in the beginning of their rising, because they did not come out at their appointed times. And he was angry with them and bound them until the time when their guilt should be consummated for 10,000 years." Wow. Okay. So that's chapter 18 of the book of Enoch. So that's a lot to unpack, but let's talk about it. So Enoch is having a vision, and in his vision, he's taken to a place that is described as like the end of the heavens and the earth. Now, it's difficult to tell if this is another dimension or if this is supposed to be a place, like a physical place in the universe. Um, Here in verse 13, he actually talks about there being a prison for stars. Like these are stars that apparently didn't shine and didn't come out when God set them to. And Enoch is saying that he actually went to a place where he sees that these stars are put in prison. Um, it's curious it's a strange detail, but I'm wondering if the stars that are being described here are actually a form of angel, because in the book of Revelation we see one of the things mentioned is it says the stars will fall from heaven, and it's implied that the stars and the stars can be another name for angels, and the punishment for these stars, this this abyss or this prison, it seems similar to where the fallen angels are being kept as well. So there could be a lot of metaphor going on here, but it could also be literal. Um, Something that's very strange that Enoch talks about in chapter 18 is he is describing um, that he saw where the winds are kept and where the winds come from. And he seems to be saying that the winds move the sun, which no, they don't. But there again, this is a very metaphorical vision, and it may not be literal. But I don't exactly understand what that means. It's very curious. It's very interesting. Does anyone in the chat have any questions? Anyone want me to reread parts of chapter 18, or would you like me to move on to chapter 19? Hi, Adam. Welcome back. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. What's your question, Adam? I'd be glad to talk about it with you. You have a question about the book? Oh, is this book banned from a Catholic party? Why isn't it in the Bible? Oh, um, so well, no, it's not banned. Okay, it's not banned. It was never banned per se. The Book of Enoch was the earliest manuscripts of it that we have go back to about 300 or 400 BC, and from what we understand, they were collected and possibly written by a group of Jews known as the Essenes. And the Essenes were a group of Jews that considered themselves more holy than the rest of the Jews of the time. And they were big fans of the Book of Enoch. Um, the thing is not all Jews agreed on the canonicity of Enoch, and because not all the different types of Jews agreed on the canonicity of the Book of Enoch, when it came to canonize certain books, um, the early church fathers and later on during the Protestant Reformation, they wanted the Old Testament to reflect the same Old Testament that the Jews had at the time, and most Jews, well, I shouldn't say most Jews, pretty much all Jews did not include the Book of Enoch in their canon. Only the group known as the Essenes included it in their canon, and they were seen as kind of like a fringe group. And so, because they were seen as somewhat of a fringe group, um, the majority of Jews didn't adopt it to the Old Testament, and then the Christians copied the Jewish Old Testament. And so it was never banned. In fact, it was read a lot by the early church because we see the Book of Enoch quoted quite often in the New Testament. We see the Book of Enoch quoted in the Book of Jude, and we see the Book of Enoch quoted in Second Peter, and we also see reference to it in the Gospels. When I was reading chapter 15, it references that angels don't marry in heaven. And one of the things that Jesus says when the Pharisees come to question him is the Pharisees present this hypothetical idea to Jesus. Suppose a woman married 7 different men, and like in a row, right? She marries a man, he dies. She marries a man, he dies, all the way up to the seventh one. And then they ask Jesus, whose wife will he or yeah, who will have her in heaven, right? Whose wife will she be? And Jesus says, haven't you read that the angels neither marry nor are taken in marriage? And the only place that you can read where it specifically says angels do not get married is in the Book of Enoch. And God explains why in the Book of Enoch, why angels don't get married. So it seems to be Jesus was familiar with the Book of Enoch, that or because he is God, that he also understands that angels don't marry. But the Book of Enoch was never banned. It just was never fully accepted. You should know that the Ethiopic Bible has 88 books in it, including First Enoch, and the version of Enoch that we have uh, is the Ethiopic version because the Hebrew version there isn't a full manuscript of it. The Ethiopic version is the only one that's a full manuscript. Uh, Thank you very much for reading. I was born without my left hand or right foot, so I can relate to you. Yeah. Um. Thank you for watching. Thank you for reading along. I'm glad to have you in the chat. Um. I I empathize with you there. I actually my left arm, although I do have a left arm, it doesn't work well. My left arm doesn't work well, and my left leg doesn't work well. I do have both a left arm and left leg, but neither of them work well. And also, my right arm and right leg don't work well, but they work better than the left arm and left leg. Um, so yeah. But thank you for watching, and I one of these days I'm going to make a video about disability and faith and how they're related. Because I've prayed for healing for many years, and obviously, God hasn't completely healed me in that way. But I I've learned a lot through my experiences, and I've found that whether God heals you or doesn't heal you, there is a purpose for it, and it's you don't really, or at least I didn't really understand it until like many years later. So it's I'm gonna have to make a whole video about disability and faith and um, what happens when God doesn't heal you and how you respond to that. Um, so if that sounds like a video you're interested in, that's something I'm probably going to do in the future. But yeah, thank you for watching. Um, is everybody ready to move on to chapter 19, or does anyone want to still, or yeah, does anyone still want to talk about chapter 18? Yeah, that's it. I have a chronic illness, I pray. As well, it is misery every day. I would like to see that video. Yeah, for sure. I will be making that video because I think there's a lot of people that struggle with um, disability and with illness who've been praying for healing for a very long time. And oh wait, I just got in here. I'm ready for the next. Wait, I just got in here. I'm ready for the next chapter. Okay. You're ready to move on then? Move to the next chapter? All right, we can move on to the next chapter. Move on. All right. All right, so this is chapter 19 of the book of Enoch. All right. All right. Yep. All right, we'll move on to chapter 19. All right, so this is chapter 19. It says, "And Uriel said to me, the messengers who have connected themselves with women and will stand here, and their spirits, assuming many different forms, are defiling mankind and will lead them astray into sacrificing to demons as gods. They will stand here until the day of the great judgment in which let me turn the page, in which they will be judged until they are made an end of, and also the women of the messengers who went astray will become sirens. And only I, Enoch, saw the vision the ends of all things, and no man will see as I have seen. All right, that was chapter 19. It's pretty short, but it's also pretty interesting. Something that's interesting to note is that it mentions Uriel, who's one of the archangels. Earlier, I think it's in chapter 6 or 7, it mentions 4 archangels. It mentions Michael, Gabriel, Uriel, and Raphael. And we see Michael, Gabriel, and Raphael in other books of the Bible, but we don't see Uriel mentioned anywhere else in any of the other books. So it's very interesting that Uriel is the one talking to Enoch in this vision. Prior to that, we had Michael talking to him, and but this was Uriel. Another really interesting thing to notice here is it says that these fallen angels, it says that there will be men that will worship them as gods. What does it say? The sirens are in Greek, in other places. Yeah, so it does. It mentions in verse of chapter 19, it mentions that some of these women that these fallen angels had relationships with, it mentions them becoming sirens, which I don't have the siren part. It's more like the women will be their friend. Well, in my translation, it uses the word siren. It says they were judged and made an end. It says, and the women of the messengers who sent astray will become sirens. The version that I'm using is called the Literal Standard Version. So with the Literal Standard Version, the words are translated like word for word. So there's no paraphrasing going on here. But the word siren in Greek, it's related to like one who calls or like one who draws near. And so the idea of them being a friend to these fallen angels, if you think about the word siren is like draw near, I guess you could say that they're a friend to them and that they had relations with them and that they drew them in. So I guess the translation of friend kind of works. But if you want to be even more literal, what does it say? Very interesting to have an interpretive version. Dr. Ken Johnson, I will check. Yeah, the version I'm using is called the LSV. So that's the literal standard version. So it's a word for word translation, and it's more like an old King James, where it keeps the meaning and the structure of the original language. But there's versions that are what are known as paraphrase translations. And a paraphrase translation is like where it translates the idea, but not the word. So, in your translation, what does it say? Oh, yeah, you have an interpretive version. So, in your version, where it translates the word siren as friend, it may be using the word friend because a siren draws things close, like a friend. You might think I'm crazy, but the sirens are literally in the Great Lakes of Michigan. Check them out. Some research. I live in Michigan, so yeah, I should totally check that out. By the way, did you know Lake Michigan has more shipwrecks than like anywhere else in the United States? Lake Michigan has over 10,000 shipwrecks in it, which is crazy. And also, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Lake Michigan Stonehenge, but there's actually an area in Lake Michigan at the bottom, like, what is it? Continue what you were saying. That man will worship. Oh, yeah. Okay. Adam, yeah, I'll get onto that. So it talks about how one of the deceptions of these fallen angels is that men will worship them as gods. So these angels came down to earth, the Watchers. They come down to earth and they breed with human women and they create these giants. And it says that um, in the course of time, that men are going to worship them as gods, but they're actually demons. And in the New Testament, Paul, I think it's in the book of Romans, he makes reference to how the gods that the other nations worship are actually demons that like the type like Moloch and Baal and Ashura, like there's these different Canaanite deities that are mentioned, like and also the Greek gods. They're mentioned, yeah, they're mentioned in the New Testament, and it says that these gods. Yes, I did know that is actually the craziest and most deadliest lake. Yeah, yes, it is crazy deadly. Um, yeah, but in the New Testament, it mentions that the gods that are worshipped, like the pagan gods, are actually demons. And that's what the book of Enoch is saying. It's saying that these fallen angels are worshipped like they're gods, but they're just fallen angels. So that's just what it's saying here. But does anyone want to talk about chapter 19 more? The giants or the Nephilim? Yes, Nephilim in Hebrew means great ones or men of renown, but it's often translated as giants or men of stature. And so, yes, the word Nephilim and giant mean the same thing, but depending on your translation, it may use like great ones or men of renown. Like if you have an old King James, it translates the word Nephilim as men of renown. But obviously, a giant would be of renown. So yeah. But yes, the giants are the Nephilim. And no, the giants are not demons. The giants are not demons. They are the offspring of human women and the Watchers. And the giants, but when the giants die, it says that their spirits, that was in chapter 18. They are the Anunnaki. Well, now you're getting into Sumerian stuff. That's going beyond the text. But I don't think I really don't think the Sumerian texts and Enoch are talking about the same thing, to be honest. But I know some people try to make that claim, but I don't think that's what's actually going on here. I know some people say, well, didn't the Anunnaki come down and mess with human DNA, and didn't the angels come down and interbreed with these human women? Don't those stories look similar? And it's like, yeah, if you take a lot of liberties, I suppose. But no, the giants are the offspring of the angels and the human women, and as a result, you end up with these freakish hybrids. What happens when the giants die? So that's what it said in chapter 19, or chapter 19. It says when the giants die, that their spirits will be on the earth, and that their spirits will cause havoc among men. That's where in the New Testament, when it talks about unclean spirits, so people that get possessed in the New Testament, it says they have unclean spirits. The unclean spirits are the spirits of the departed Nephilim. So when the Nephilim died in the flood, it says that their spirits inhabited the earth and caused havoc among men. So demons are disembodied spirits of the Nephilim. Yes, you're right. Yes, the demons are the disembodied. Well, no, the unclean spirits are the disembodied spirits of the Nephilim. Demons are fallen angels. So the demons are fallen angels, but the unclean spirits are the spirits of the Nephilim. Because some people think unclean spirits and demons are the same thing, but they're slightly different. Um, the demons are these Watchers. Their offspring are the unclean spirits. So the unclean spirits are related to them, but they're not the same. But yeah. So did man and giants get along? No. That's one of, if we go back to chapter 4, it talks about the giants were eating everybody. The giants were eating everybody. They were destroying everything. They were causing havoc on the earth. That was one of the reasons why it says God sent the flood, was to wipe out the giants. And something that's really interesting to note with the giants, if you read the book of Joshua, in the book of Joshua, guess what it says when they go to Jericho? Remember the story about Caleb and the spies, where they go inside the city of Jericho to see if they can overtake it or not. What do they come back and say? Right, 10 men go in with Caleb, and 9 of them say, "We're not going to be able to take Jericho because why? Because it says there are giants in the city, and we're like grasshoppers." Okay, so the giants, although the flood was supposed to kill the giants, as evidenced by Jericho and by like Goliath, some of these giants survived, or somehow their DNA still passed on, or this could have to do with their spirits. It's not entirely clear why there are still giants mentioned in the book of Joshua and in the book of Samuel after they were supposed to be killed with the flood. What? So did man? Yeah. So yeah. So yeah, the giants. No, they did not get along with humans. They were always hostile to godliness. Because their parents were ungodly, they were inherently ungodly. Hello, welcome back, Kim. Welcome back. Getting the gang all together here. Yes. Kim, were you in on the earlier chapters? We're up to chapter 20 now. Were you there for some of the earlier chapters? No, I'll wait a second. But we were just talking about the giants and their spirits. No, I just logged down. Okay. Well, this is going to be recorded, so you're going to be able to go back and watch it after I stop recording. But we're up to chapter 20 now. So we're just reading up to chapter 21 tonight. Yeah, I'll watch it later. Oh, that's fine. But if everybody's ready, we can move on to chapter 20. Is everybody ready to move on to chapter 20? Someone type yes. I don't want to leave anyone behind. You know. All right. Let's go on to chapter 20 here. All right. So it says, "In their name of the holy messengers who watch." Okay. Uriel, one of the holy messengers who is over the world and over Tartarus. Raphael, one of the holy messengers who is over the spirits of men. Raguel, one of the holy messengers who takes vengeance on the world of the luminaries. And Michael, one of the messengers, namely he that is set over the best part of mankind and over chaos. Seraquel, one of the holy messengers who is set over the spirits who sin in the spirit. Gabriel, one of the holy messengers who is over paradise and the serpents and the cherubim. Remiel, one of the holy messengers whom God set over those who rise. Interesting. Okay, that was chapter 20. Very short. It's a very short chapter. But did you notice it mentioned seven great holy ones? These are spirits. They're angels. Some would call them archangels. If you read the book of Tobit, is anybody in here familiar with the book of Tobit? If you haven't read the book of Tobit, It's one of the deuterocanonical books. It's in the Catholic Bible. It's not in the Protestant Bible. In the book of Tobit, in chapter 12, okay, yeah, M3. All right, you're familiar with Tobit. Okay. In chapter 12 of the book of Tobit, Raphael says to Tobit, I am one of the 7 spirits that stands before the throne of God. One of the 7 spirits. If we read the book of Revelation, it also mentions the 7 spirits of God. Um, and the only place we find 7, I guess you'd say, archangels, is in chapter 20 of the book of Enoch. So that seems to be some confirmation that some of the things that are in Enoch are substantiated in other books of the Bible, which is pretty interesting. But of these 7 archangels, we only ever see 3 of them mentioned in the other books. We see Raphael, Gabriel, and Michael mentioned. We don't see Uriel, Raguel. I gotta go back here and read some of the others. We see Gabriel mentioned in other books. But yeah, it says that each one of these archangels is set over like a different segment of reality. So it's very interesting to note that it says that Uriel is over the world in Tartarus. And Tartarus is another name for hell. There's a few different titles used for Hades and hell. You've got Tartarus, you've got Gehenna, you've got the Lake of Fire, you've got Hades, you've got Sheol. All these are actually kind of like different places, but they're oftentimes intermixed with each other. So, like, sometimes you will see Tartarus mentioned alongside with Gehenna, but Gehenna is a little bit different. But that's a whole nother discussion for another day. These, if Hades and Gehenna and all these different places are actually the same place, or if they're different regions of the same place, because there's actually a theory that the different titles for the underworld are actually different regions of the same place. So, like, some people have suggested that the outer darkness is like the outermost edge of hell, and then like Hades is like an inner ring, and then beyond Hades is like Gehenna, and then beyond Gehenna is like the abyss, and then beyond that is like the lake of fire. And so like there's a theory that all these different names are actually different regions of the same place and not different places. And there's also a theory that actually it's all just the same place. But that's a whole nother discussion for another day. But it's very interesting that says Uriel resides over Tartarus. It also says here that Michael, the archangel Michael, it says that Michael actually resides over the best part of mankind and chaos. Isn't that strange that it says that Michael resides over the best part of mankind and chaos? Like, those two things don't seem like they should go together, but apparently they do somehow. And I mean, if you want to get interpretive, um, is it saying that the best part of mankind is chaotic? Not entirely sure why the best part of mankind and chaos go together. Um, but that's very interesting. Does anyone in the chat have any theories on why it says Archangel Michael resides over the best part of mankind and chaos? Israel, maybe? Well, what does it say? Misinterpretation? Well, this is the literal standard version, so it's being translated literally. Which literal the difficulty with the literal translation is that our language is not identical to their language, and so what they would have meant literally may not sound the same when we say it literally. Yeah. Yeah, it is strange. But M3, you're right when you say Israel, when you say the best part of mankind, because in the book of Daniel, it says that Michael resides over Israel. And so when it says the best part of mankind, although it's not saying Israel, yeah, Michael is the prince of them, possibly it means Israel. Like, yeah, no, I agree, because in the book of Daniel it says that Michael is the prince over Israel. And I think it's Daniel chapter 9. So yeah, I think it's Daniel chapter 9 where it talks about Archangel Michael's the prince over Israel. That's also where it talks about Michael resisting the prince of Persia, where Daniel prays and his prayer is halted by the prince of Persia, and Michael has to fight the prince of Persia for like 30 days or something like that. Um, but yeah, I agree with you. It's most likely talking about Israel. Um, so that's chapter 20. Um, but yeah, just a simple takeaway from this is that for each realm of reality, it's wait, doesn't Michael have something to do with the Battle of Armageddon? Yeah. So yes, you're right. So in the book of Revelation, it says that it's the archangel Michael who cast the dragon down into the lake of fire. So it says that it's the archangel Michael who slays the dragon. In fact, if you there's a very famous painting of Archangel Michael with a sword killing the red dragon. And the red dragon represents the devil, but the red dragon also represents chaos. And so, yes, it's very interesting that Michael is the one that kills the dragon, and the dragon is chaos. So when it says that he rules over chaos and the best part of mankind, it could be saying that he rules over even like the devil, like he's over him, and that like he has power over him in a sense. Um, Also, another interesting thing about chaos is that in the book of Job, when it talks about the Leviathan is actually a symbol for chaos. And the Leviathan is also a symbol for Lucifer. Both Lucifer and Leviathan have a lot of overlapping imagery, and because they're both creatures of pride and they're both shiny. It says they're both silver and shiny, and that they're both creatures of pride. And so Leviathan and Lucifer are kind of related. Some people have said that Leviathan is a spirit, and other people say that it's a literal creature. Um, I'm not entirely sure if I agree if it is a spirit or a literal creature, but it is related to chaos, and it is also related to Lucifer. So, but it says Michael rules over the chaos. So I don't know. It's very interesting. Very interesting. Does anyone else have any theories why Michael rules over the best part of humanity and chaos? The Psalms with Leviathan make it seem pretty physical. So is the protector of man and the leader against chaos. I can see the connection. Yeah, I see the connection as well. Um, I agree. I agree with you, M3, that the depictions of Leviathan are very physical. Even in the book of Job, the depictions of Leviathan are pretty physical because it talks about people throwing spears at him and javelins, and that they stick in his scales, but they bounce off. And it seems to imply that people have had actual battles with Leviathan. So I would agree that the Bible makes it seem that Leviathan is a literal creature. Um, there's other books. I want to say it's the second book of Baruch. So there's a first book of Baruch, which is in the Catholic Deuterocanon, the book of Baruch. But I think it's second. There's also a book called Second Baruch, and it says that at the end of time, there will be a battle between the behemoth and the Leviathan, and that the behemoth will that they will end up killing each other, and that when the behemoth and the Leviathan kill each other, that mankind will have like a feast, and that mankind will eat the bodies of the dead Leviathan and the behemoth, and there will be no more hunger on the earth. It's in Second Baruch, which is like it's one of those apocryphal books. It's not in the Bible. It's an apocryphal book, but it talks about there being a final battle between Leviathan and Behemoth. It's pretty interesting. If anyone's interested, I could read Second Baruch at a future date if anyone's interested in that. But yeah, so but yeah, Leviathan is connected to chaos, and if Michael rules over chaos and Leviathan is chaos, that implies that Michael rules over Leviathan. All right. So, but let's move on to chapter 21. So, this is chapter 21 of the book of Enoch. Let's do it. All right. So it says, and I proceeded to where things were chaotic. Ooh, there's some chaos here. It says, and I proceeded to where things were chaotic, and I saw something horrible there. I saw neither a heaven above nor a firmly founded earth, but a chaotic and horrible place. And there I saw 7 stars of the heavens bound together in it like the great mountains and burning with fire. Then I said, for the sin are they bound, and what account have they been cast here? Then Uriel, one of the holy messengers who was with me and was chief over them, spoke and said, Enoch, why do you ask, and why are you eager for the truth? There are the number of the stars of the heavens, which have transgressed the command of heaven, have transgressed the command of the Lord, and are bound here until 10,000 years, and time entailed by their sins are consummated. And from there I went to another place which was still more horrible than the former, and I saw a horrible thing, and great fire there which burned and blazed, and the place was cleft as far as the abyss, being full of great descending columns of fire. I could see neither its extent or magnitude, nor could I conjecture. Then I said, how fearful in the place, and how terrible to look on. Then Uriel answered at me, one of the holy messengers who was with me, and said to me, Enoch, why do you have such fear and fright? And I answered, because of this fearful place, and because of the spectacle of pain. And he said to me, this place is the prison of the messengers. They will be imprisoned here forever. Whoa, that's intense. Okay, so Enoch. All right, so remember how I said that Tartarus is synonymous with hell? Yeah, it's synonymous with hell. He just went to basically the abyss where everything is fire and is chaotic. It literally says it's a place of chaos. But see, it says Uriel. Uriel is the ruler over this place. Who are the messengers? The messengers are the angels. So Uriel, once again, because this is the literal standard translation, every time there's an angel, it calls them a messenger, because the word malach in Hebrew literally means messenger. So a lot of times people think an angel is a type of creature. No. Uriel is one of the good angels, but the watchers are the bad angels. Both the watchers and the archangels are messengers because they're both angels. But angel is just the description of what they do, right? Messenger is the description of what they do. It's not a description of their being. So all heavenly hosts are not angels in the sense that they're not all messengers. But all the watchers and all the archangels, they're all messengers. That's why the word messenger is used. Um, but so when it says that he was down there with one of the messengers, Uriel, he's referring to the angel Uriel, who's one of the good angels. Okay, so Uriel is one of the good guys. Remember in chapter 20, the previous chapter, it says that Uriel rules over, see, it says Uriel, one of the holy messengers who is over the world and over Tartarus. So Uriel in chapter 20, so Uriel in chapter 20 is, what is it? Job title. Yeah. Yeah, angel is a job title. It's not a description of their substance. So angel just means messenger. Um, but there are types of angels, like there's seraphim, there's cherubim. What? But why would the messengers be in this prison? Did I miss it? The reason the messengers are in this prison, were you here for chapters 1 through Adam, were you here for chapters 1 through 7? Were you here for chapters 1 through 7? Angels have free will. Yeah, yeah, you got it. Oh, okay. So Adam, I'll catch you up. So in chapters 1 through 7, the fallen angels, the watchers, they come down to earth and they procreate with human women and they create the nephilim, which are the giants. And see, these fallen angels, it says there were 200 of them. It says they came down and they reproduced with human women, which was an abomination to God, and it was a horrible sin. And so they came down to earth and they did this, and it created these giants that caused havoc all over the earth. And it says that these fallen angels, not only did they procreate with human women and create these abominations, it says that the fallen angels taught humans forbidden knowledge. It says that the angels taught, these fallen angels taught humans things like sorcery and metalworking and how to make potions and astrology and fortune telling and like all sorts of like abominable things. It says that these fallen angels came down and they taught humans forbidden, sinful things. And so, because these angels came down and did all this horrible stuff, God is just, and so God had to punish them. And so, in the previous chapters, Enoch is tasked with going up to these fallen angels and essentially serving them. And when I say serving them, I mean like like when somebody is about to get a divorce and they get served and they're like, here's your divorce papers. Enoch is tasked with going up to these fallen angels and literally telling them, by the way, you done screwed up and God is very mad. He's going to punish you. He's going to kill your giant children. He's going to kill your Nephilim, and he's going to cast you into hell. Yeah, like a service of notice. Yeah, so Enoch is tasked with essentially giving a service of notice to these fallen angels, telling them that no matter how much they beg, no matter how much they plead, God is not going to forgive them for their treachery. And so now Uriel is showing him the place where these fallen angels are going to reside. Okay. And we see this in the book of Revelation where it actually talks about the abyss, where it talks about it actually talks about the fallen angels being kept in chains and being cast down into the bottomless pit, also known as the abyss. And so this overlaps with the book of Revelation. And it also overlaps with Second Peter, where in the book of Second Peter it talks about the fallen angels being put in chains in the abyss. But this gives even more description of what the abyss looks like. And it says that it's a place of chaos and fire. And the word that it's using to describe this place is Tartarus. So yeah, Tartarus is just another name for hell, or it's another name for a hell-like place, a prison, a tormenting prison, so to speak. But yeah, so Adam, if you're wondering why these fallen angels are being kept there, it's because they committed treachery against God. That's why. And they essentially ruined mankind. So that was chapter 21. Does anyone want to discuss chapter 21? Anyone have any questions about chapter 21? Understood. Anyone else have any questions about chapter 21? We're just now getting the party started. We got even more people in the live here. I could read past chapter 21. I normally read these in 7 chapter segments. I don't know if anyone. Oh, you want to move on to the next chapter? Okay, we can go on to the next chapter. All right. This is chapter 22. All right. It says, and then I went to another place, the mountain of the hard rock, and there were 4 hollow places in it, deep and wide and very smooth. Oh, how smooth the hollow places are, and deep and dark to look at. Then Raphael answered the one of the holy messengers. He's one of the good angels. He's one of the archangels, who was with me and said to me, these hollow places have been created for this very purpose, that the spirits of the souls of the dead should assemble therein, yes, that all the souls of the children of men should assemble here. And these places have been made to receive them until the day of their judgment, and until their appointed period, until the great judgment comes on them. I saw the spirit of a dead man making sweet, and his voice went out to heaven and made made suit. So he's walking. And I asked Raphael, the messenger, who was with me, and I said to him, this spirit which makes suit, whose is it? Whose voice goes out and makes suit to heaven? So it's using the word suit here for prayer. So he's praying. Okay. And he answered me, saying, this is the spirit which went out from Abel. Okay, so it's talking about Abel's spirit here, as in Cain and Abel. This is Abel's spirit, who his brother Cain slew, and he makes his suit against him until his seed is destroyed from the face of the earth, and his seed is annihilated from among the seed of men. Then I asked regarding it, and regarding all the hollow places, why is one separated from the other? And he answered me and said to me, these 3 have been made that the spirits of the dead might be separated, and such a division has been made for the spirits of the righteous, in which there is the bright spring of water, and such has been made for sinners when they die, and are buried in the earth, and judgment has not been executed on them in their lifetime. Here their spirits will be set apart in the great pain until the great day of judgment, and there will be punishment and retribution for their spirits. There will bind them forever. And such a division has been made for the spirits of those who make their suit, who make disclosure concerning their destruction, when they were made, or when they were slain in the days of the sinners. Such has been made for the spirits of men who were not righteous but sinners, who were complete in transgression, and they will be companions of transgressors, but their spirits will not be slain in the day of judgment, nor will they be raised from there. Then I blessed the Lord of glory and said, blessed is my Lord, the Lord of righteousness, who rules forever. All right. What does it say? 22 is very interesting. Oh yeah. No, I agree. I agree. Chapter 22 is very interesting. Um, yeah, because chapter 22 was like it's a description of the abyss and of hell, also known as Tartarus. Um, and also it's, or I'm sorry, no, that's chapter 21. Chapter 22 is interesting because it's like it's describing the underworld. It's interesting here that one of the people that Enoch sees is the spirit of Abel, and it says that Abel is praying to God. Okay, Abel is praying to God from the underworld, right? He's in this spirit realm for the departed, and it says that Abel is crying out to God for God to wipe out the lineage of Cain. And it's very interesting because we don't really see anything else like that anywhere else in the Bible. We don't see we don't see the spirits of departed people praying for vengeance on earth. The closest thing we get to it is in the New Testament, where you have the parable of the rich man and Lazarus, and it talks about how there's a chasm between Abraham's bosom and wherever the rich man is, which is like Hades. And here it talks about there being, wait, I like Ken Johnson's commentary. One place where the righteous dwell, Abraham's bosom, Luke, yep. And a second place where the rich man, and a third place, the fallen angels, Tartarus. I think that's a pretty interesting interpretation. And that was about where I was about to go with this, but you beat me to the punch. You beat me to it. But yeah, I wanted to say that the talk of the separation of spirits seems very similar to what we see in Luke in the parable of the rich man and Lazarus, where Jesus says there's a chasm between Lazarus and the rich man, and that um, like the rich man or the Lazarus cannot reach across there. So there again, it seems like that's some confirmation that at a minimum that Jesus was familiar with First Enoch, um, because there's a lot of similarity in the imagery. Um, Although it's not a direct quotation of Enoch, it's similar enough that it makes you think that he was at least familiar with it. Um, anyone else? Anyone have any other questions about chapter 22? I think it's interesting that it says that Abel is continuously praying for God to wipe out the lineage of Cain. Um, it seems how would I say it? Like it it seems like kind of vengeful. Like we don't really get the impression that Abel we don't really get that impression in Genesis that Abel is vengeful. But this may be a play on where it says in the book of Genesis where it says that Abel's blood cries out to the Lord. Remember in the book of Genesis where it says Cain kills Abel and it says and his blood cries out to God? Um, where it talks about here in chapter 22, Abel praying to God to wipe out the lineage of Cain. That may be a play on, or it may be like referring to how Abel's blood cries out to the Lord. There's probably some relation there. That's my guess. But yeah, but your commentary on how it relates to Abraham's bosom and the rich man Lazarus, I agree with that. I totally agree with that. I think that is intentional imagery that Jesus was conveying in the New Testament. Um, does everyone want to move on to chapter 23? Or does anyone have any questions about chapter 22? I'll wait. Anyone have any questions about chapter 22? No? I guess I can move on to chapter 23. Does everyone want to move on to chapter 23? Yay or nay? Yes or no? M3? Yeah. Okay. We can move on to chapter 23. It's a very short chapter, by the way. It says, "From there I went to another place to the west of the ends of the earth, and I saw a burning fire which ran without resting and did not cease from its course day or night, but ran regularly. And I asked, saying, What is this? What is this which does not rest? Then Raguel, one of the holy messengers, he's one of the archangels, who was with me, answered me and said to me, This course of fire which you have seen is the fire in the west, which persecutes all the luminaries of heaven." Okay. Wow. So there's a there's a burning fire which moves without rest at the ends of the earth in the place of the west. Um, and when it says from there I went to the place of the west of the ends of the earth, um, it seems to be implying that from the book of Enoch's perspective, that there is a literal end of the earth, like a literal place. All like I don't know if it's implying a flat Earth or if it's implying like because one of the things that's interesting about the Book of Enoch, what is it? Yes. Oh yeah, you wanted me to read this chapter. That's what you're saying yes to. One of the things about the Book of Enoch is it can be difficult to tell if what he's saying is the spirit realm or if it's a place on Earth. Um, Given his last location, it seems to be the spirit realm, but there were people in ancient Near East cultures that believed places like hell and heaven were literal places in the physical realm, but they were just very far away. Um, like you see this a little bit in the Old Testament, where it describes Sheol as like being at the bottom of the ocean. Um, so yeah, we see sometimes that there's imagery where it's overlapping like the earth, but also the spirit realm. And but this seems to imply that he's somewhere on earth. What is interesting though is that it says that the fire in the west, which persecutes all the luminaries of heaven, the sun sets in the west, right? It rises in the east and it sets in the west, right? And it says that uh, this fire persecutes the luminaries of heaven. It's not. I'm not entirely sure what that means. Like when it says that this fire persecutes the luminaries of heaven, that's a very interesting choice of words because um, persecute. When we think of persecution, we often think about like there's like an ideology to it, like you're being persecuted for your faith or you're being persecuted for your identity. Um, Persecution it's a very interesting choice of words, and I don't know if anyone has a different translation. Does anyone else have a different translation of Enoch that uses a different word besides persecution? Because, like I said, I'm using the literal standard version. So that means whatever word was used literally meant persecution. But um, the idea may be different. Uh, which verse? M3, it is verse 4 of chapter 23. Verse 4 of chapter 23. What word does yours say? Mine says the fire persecutes the luminaries of heaven. Um, what does yours say? Because this is going to be interesting to see if they use the same word or not. Also, does anyone have any idea what the luminaries are? It seems to be that the luminaries are stars. Like the luminaries are, from what I understand, that they are like literal stars. So this fire literally persecutes stars. Very interesting. And wherever this is, it says it's in the west, at the furthest corners of the earth. It says luminaries, stars, angels. This burning fire which you have seen running towards the west is the fire of all the luminaries in heaven. So, and it seems to be that they're using the word running towards the west, where this says, this course which you have seen, is persecuting. Yeah, which persecutes all the luminaries of heaven. So the reason that yours might say running and mine might say persecute, because if you think about persecution, it can mean to like chase down something with hostile intent. Like if you're almost like a pursuit. Like if you think about the root word of persecution is to pursue. Yeah, following each other. Yeah, so it says that this fire, so you could think about it as whatever this fire is, it's following. It's following after the luminaries, which are stars, but as we talked about earlier, stars and angels are seen as sometimes the same thing in biblical language. But yeah, that's all of chapter 23. And then I suppose we could. Does anyone want to read on to chapter 24? Or you guys want to call it quits? I will be doing these lives every Tuesday and hopefully Friday around like 9:30. So I'll be doing these like twice a week, and I try to cover 7 chapters each time. The Book of Enoch has 108 chapters, so it's going to take us several weeks to work through the whole book. And anyone who's tuning in who isn't subscribed, if you like stuff about the Book of Enoch and other books that are in what they call the Apocrypha, I invite you to subscribe because that's the kind of stuff we cover here on my channel. So yeah, I'm going to bed. God bless. Thanks for watching, Kim. Look forward to you joining us next time. Yeah. Thanks, M3. Glad to have you guys here in the chat. Good night. Is everybody feeling good? Everybody about ready to call it quits? We can pick up maybe not Friday or Saturday at 9 o'clock. If that sounds good to everyone. Anyone have anything they want to add before we close out? Yes, no? I'll give it a minute. Actually, no, I want to say a prayer real quick before we end things. Dear Heavenly Father, I pray for everybody, Lord, in the chat. Lord, I pray that you would just bless them and that you would give them peace, Lord, as they're going off to bed. Lord, I pray that you would protect them with your angels and that you would fill them with your wisdom. Lord, I pray that you would continue to fill us with your wisdom as we try to learn more about you. Lord, we pray these things in Jesus' precious name. Amen. All right. Is that good? Is everybody set? All right. This has been Prayer and Practice. My name's Ian, and it's have a great night. God bless you. Yep, you too, M3. God bless. God bless you. All right. Good night, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. And I will see you all again soon. And we will be picking up at chapter 24 and the first book of Enoch. And for anyone who's just tuning in, we just finished chapter 23 of the first book of Enoch. And we'll be picking up at chapter 24 next time. So everyone have a good night, and God bless, and goodbye.